The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Faster by, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Max Radio. Open line through till 1 today. Maybe you want to respond to anything that Julian MHK had to say yesterday. The Education, Sport and Culture Minister was on, talking about, well, lots of things, including that relationship and sex education curriculum, which she says won't be reintroduced till it's been adapted for Manx children. State of the schools, state of the swimming pools, well, one in particular. And anything else, really. Howard's first with us today. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. Just as a point of interest, and this is for the government, or civil servants and all the people living on the island, in Northern Ireland, a company that operates the power supply, or part of it, it's a power station called Kilroot. And it will stop generating electricity from coal at midnight on Saturday. That was last Saturday. But the next line says a replacement gas-fired station is under construction on the same site, and it will begin operating in 3 months' time. Now, I wish I could put this up in big letters and stick it down a government office before our lot go on this unbelievably expensive route of putting wind farms in and all sorts of ideas. And you're going to be talking hundreds of millions of pounds here. We've already got a perfectly adequate building down there in Polrose, and they could just replace the engines without going down this net zero. As if the Isle of Man, with its small output of CO2, is going to make a huge difference. They're just following their noses and obeying instructions. And this place here, until now, coal has made up 15% of electricity generated in Northern Ireland. And they are going to build more of the gas-fired power stations. And one of them, the orders to make the grid more secure, they're saying, and the new gas-fired station, ensuring that the new gas-fired power stations, as plural, can operate without restriction on their running hours. In other words, if the wind don't blow, the lights don't go. And if you've got a power station that's running down there, the facilities are all there, the connectors are all there, you wouldn't have to do a massively expensive exercise of putting new cables in and building roads. And, of course, we're going to have to build what they farcically suggested, building a landing area in Castletown to bring these wind farm blades and sections in. You can hardly get a single-decker bus through there, never mind those damn things. But this is just, it's all part of England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, I say, but it's all part of the United Kingdom, the British Isles. So why are they going down the route, the sensible route of replacing what was a coal-fired station with what we already have, and I think personally we should replace with, like for like, a gas-fired. So are the government, are the powers to be listening to people who have a vested interests in it, or are they interested in what the people of the Isle of Man want?
I think also that Kilroot power station, I'm sure that's owned in Central. I think it's Czech. It's a Czech company that actually owns that.
Yeah, well, it's Sony. I've got it in front of me here now, but I've lost that bit. But I saw it the other day, and they don't want to rely on interconnectors because they can, well, like you said the other day about France holding a gun to the head, if you don't do as you're told, we'll cut your power off. And you can see exactly that happening. It was an interconnector between the Isle of Man and the UK. over in Bispham, and they just pulled the plug out. And there we are, sitting in the dark. But this is food for thought, and the powers that be that are sitting in there, and what I can't understand, they're already going for procurement of solar energy and buying turbines, etc., or pricing turbines, and they haven't done what they've just paid a huge amount of money out for analysis machines to sit on the areas where they're talking about putting them.
So, just get it straight then, Howard. Do you think that we shouldn't replace Pulrose Power Station? You think we should still keep burning gas there?
Yes. Well, the gas is owned by, the pipeline's owned by the government of the Isle of Man.
Well, we just finished paying for it, I think, at the weekend.
More or less, yeah. They gave tens of millions of pounds to put the pipelines all over the island, and after only a matter of a few years, I think it was 2003, 20 years, they're now talking about scrapping it. Now, this is just the right thing, where they're not spending their own money. They're spending the people's money, and they know full well that the taxes are coming in continuously and will feed their fanciful ideas. So why don't they just look outside what they've been told by the power companies that have a vested interest and look for new gas-fired generation? If I could find that, where's it gone? They're spending a lot of money on it because they're building a brand new power station as well. But the Pulrose Power Station, I can remember that being coal-fired. Then they went to oil, but they had to change the oil because they moved on to what they call low sulfur, because it was depositing a lot of sulfur daily over Pulrose, and now they've turned on to gas, which is relatively, nothing is pure, relatively clean, and this here it seems to be suit the Irish system, so why not the Isle of Man system?
Okay, all right, thanks, Howard.
Take care, bye now.
Good to hear from you. That's the story about this Northern Irish. It's in Carrickfergus, Kilroot Power Station, which has stopped now burning coal and is going to be burning gas. As I mentioned, it is owned by a Czech company. I think it was previously American-owned, and before that was when it was nationalised, was Northern Ireland Electricity. So that's the situation there. Coal-fired power station becoming a gas-fired power station, and we still have our future in front of us, as Howard said. It's going to cost money, and we know where the money comes from. Oh, Julian's on now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. I couldn't agree more with Howard. Everything he says is always correct as far as I can see, so you should listen to him. He's definitely on the right track there. I noticed in this morning's Examiner newspaper on page 6, there's an article titled "Southern Wind Farm Site Would Be Cheaper and Generate More Electricity." And the article quotes Tim Crookall making a statement that Erie Stane could meet a third of the island's annual demand. And his assertion is based on the idea that the turbines at Erie Stane are going to be on full power for 74% of the year. And that's the only information that's propping up the MUA's feasibility study, and especially when you consider that the Environmental Impact Assessment report hasn't even commenced yet, and the wind suitability assessment has only just started, albeit only with one of the sensors, whereas you would expect normally 2 sensors in 2 different places in the same year. The problem is, based on the wind industry's own figures with that renewableuk.com website that I told you about the other week, the £40 million Erie Stane wind farm is only going to produce a quarter of the touted figure of 74%, and we're only going to get 18% of the year, or an intermittent 12th of our needs, and not necessarily when we need it. So in other words, the feasibility study is not fit for purpose, and it should be withdrawn immediately. Before, and I'll quote Julian, we're sold a pup.
So what's the thinking behind this? I mean, in your opinion, why do you think this is the way things are happening?
Somebody's making money on it? I don't know. I mean, why would you go down this route? I mean, no other planning authority would even give you the idea of even purchasing anything for an extension without going through all the hoops. We've had somebody in the south of the island who cannot get 3 little turbines up because bird life and bat life and visual amenity and flicker from the sun behind the blades, all these type of things have all put the kibosh on it every time. But it doesn't seem to apply in this case, which seems amazing, really.
Well, the government makes the rules, Julian. So presumably, if it's the government's will, then that's what they want to happen.
That's a very interesting statement. The government's will. Who pays the government?
Well, you have to follow that. I mean, the line of authority. But remember, you followed the general election in 2021. Everybody was quoting the green agenda, sustainable energy. They were all quoting a green agenda, and this is where we are.
Well, other jurisdictions are reversing course now, including the UK. So it may be that we just need to have a pause. That feasibility study is not a feasibility study. It is based on an experimental wind farm in the middle of the North Sea with 5 turbines that cost 9 times the amount of a normal wind farm.
It's going to be a couple of years, really, though, before we get any results from these wind surveys that they're doing. And by the time you then factor in planning and then construction, I mean, this is ages away.
Well, if it's 40 million is what they're saying now, and was it 25 million for the Liverpool ferry terminal originally?
Yeah, it was about 30 million, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and they're talking 90 now, so there's a yardstick. One other quick thing, which is sort of related. Anyone listening at the moment that's got an EV and they might want to check out this article in the Daily Express. If you do a search online for electric car owners may face 1,000% rise in insurance premiums, with some owners reporting spikes in quotes of over £4,000 compared to last year. A Tesla Y owner was even refused cover by Aviva recently. When trying to get cover elsewhere, quotes started at £5,000. And also, John Lewis Finance is now refusing insurance on all electric vehicles.
Interesting. Well, maybe we'll find out what the Manx brokers are thinking of that at the moment. I wonder what the reasoning is behind that.
I know. And another little, just a very short one. Barclays Bank has downgraded Ørsted's future outlook by 40%. So 27% from Moody's the other day, and now it's 40% from Barclays.
Okay.
And primarily because they can't get any bids for all these wind turbines because the electricity is more expensive.
Julian, I have to tell you, Julian, you've inspired Gaynor and John, by the way. There's a Gaynor and John Dunn. Listen to Mannin Line, and they bought a new cat yesterday, Julian. They've named their cat Julian.
Well, I love cats and dogs, so I shall keep my eyes open for my namesake.
Julian the Black Cat with Gaynor and John. Thanks, Julian.
Thanks very much, Andy.
Good to hear from you. Well, there you are. Julian the Black Cat, that is. Hi, Julian.
Do you think they've called it that because he keeps clawing at stuff all the time?
I don't know. I have to tell you something.
Julian.
Oh, Julian, yes. But before we get... I have to tell you something. Can you confirm, Julian, that you are not Julian Turner?
There's an interesting... where did that little snippet come from?
It came as... I think it was on social media at the weekend. Some people are saying that to Julian, to our friend of the programme, Julian Turner, that you're never off the Mannin Line. We'll call it the Julian Line. And
right.
Julian wants... can we confirm that our Julian is not Julian Turner?
You're quite correct, and this is actually a conversation. I had a very brief conversation with Julie Edge as it happened a couple of weeks ago. The first time that I've spoke to her since this RSE thing had come about, and her partner was of the opinion that I was Julian Turner. That's why I found that quite interesting. I can quite categorically say that I am not Julian Turner. I am much better looking than Julian Turner.
So what's on your mind?
Just following on from two things, a bit of housekeeping from yesterday in the RSC, and also what Julian and Howard was saying there. And the reason why people like Julian are saying this stuff is because there's a lot of people here, and I talk to quite a lot of people here who are wealthy people who are concerned, business people who are concerned the way that this island is taken, and what agendas that we're following. I'm looking at, let me have a look at this now. We've got two join the team curriculums here. Transition project managers, time 2 for onshore renewables, energy transition lead internal, which was not advertised on the internet. This is Manx Utilities. Managing and delivering 20 megawatts of onshore wind power generation, 10 megawatts of onshore solar to conform when meet the Isle of Man government's target outlined in Climate Action Plan 22-27. So this is all following on from, like we said before, I think you've just said there, a government agenda. And I had a red flag come up from someone within the Manx Utilities. And after questions that I asked, the bottom line, and this is from a person who is in Manx Utilities, the Climate Change Act is what can sink the island financially. How about that? That's from someone who's actually in the business. So the question's got to be asked here, where's the information coming from that this government is using? And they really need to step 3 steps back and look at the bigger picture here, because as Julian keeps mentioning, and it's funny because people are concerned of where this is going, because we have no more money after this. If this goes down the pan, we're virtually bankrupt here, as John Webster has quite rightly said. And that's why people are concerned about what's happening here and these agendas that these people are following. And it's got to be coming from chief execs and people who are invested in government here. So I don't know, Andy, what the answer is. We're just alerting people to what's going on, and hopefully people will stand up and start taking notice. On the other thing, from housekeeping from yesterday and talking to Julie Edge, and as you know, I've been a little bit of a dog with a bone with this one. And I still ask and I know they said it's going to be reformed, and they're going to have people in there that can teach this stuff properly. It was specialised teachers, I think. Would you not think that's a bit of a slur on the teachers that's already been teaching this to start with, that they've not been teaching it properly? Is that a bit of a slur on our teachers there, Andy?
Well, the thing is, we don't know what order everything happened in, did we? Because all we know that there was a big kerfuffle and some parents and guardians got involved and there was some stuff written on social media. We don't know the internal workings of what happened where.
We don't, and what I'm looking at here is the bigger picture of this, and that we know that this transgender issue is being backed by massive money, like BLM, like Antifa, like all these here fraction groups, and these people should be looked after in the appropriate manner. And like I've said before, it shouldn't be promotion; it should be acceptance. So this is nothing against LGBT. I'll make that clear now. It's nothing against Black Lives Matter, anything at all. It's just an observation. If there's a very, very small minority of people that have gender issues, then they need to be sorted out. This shouldn't be promoted to 11-year-olds. It should not be promoted to 11-year-olds. And I'm going to keep carrying on going on that line, because I still think that this was brought in knowing that there was issues with it in Scotland already. And if anyone cares to go on the internet, they'll see the troubles around. I think there was a protest in Canada last week, a massive protest about looking after our kids and what's being taught to them in school. So this is not just here, and that's why I keep saying that the island doesn't need this stuff here, and it should be tailored to what these people, what our children need. I think one of the educators at the conference the other week, when I questioned them, they quite rightly said, we should be teaching our kids in an island way how to cope with things in the future and specialise our education. And the sex education bill, I have no problem with that. And it keeps getting thrown into the grass, my question is not about the sex education bill per se. It's about the teaching of transgenderism within this bill and teaching it to kids who's still playing with Barbie dolls and action men. They don't want action men with lipstick on and Barbie dolls with whatever attached to them. They're just 11-year-olds, and I think we have to be careful about our next generation, because, like I said, we've got massive mental health issues on this island that are now trying to be addressed. That's my rant over, Andy.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Julian. Good to hear
Take
from
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for that. 26 minutes past 12. Yes, the relationship and sex education curriculum won't be reintroduced on the Isle of Man until it's been adapted for Manx children. The Education, Sport and Culture Minister, Julian Edge, MHK, was on yesterday. It's after this independent report into the curriculum taught at Queen Elizabeth II High School in Peel was published following concerns about the content of the classes. The original curriculum was based on a Scottish model. And Julie Edge said it's important to make sure it will be tailored to the Isle of Man.
Won't come back unless we look at it from the Isle of Man point of view, and it will come back as a Manx version of the curriculum, and it will fit with the requirements that we have in the Isle of Man. And we've got to work with our professionals, and it's my job to make sure that the officers in the department are doing that work with the professional people to bring back the right curriculum that's appropriate and it's well communicated with our parents.
Got a message in from Sammy. Hello, Sammy. And just said, what were you talking about as paying off for the gas pipeline? Yes, apparently it was Chris Thomas who tweeted it at the weekend, or X'd it at the weekend. Chris Thomas said it's a big day for the MUA. Nobody mentions it yet. The Manx Utilities pays the operator for the construction costs of the gas spur pipeline to the Isle of Man until the 30th of September 2023. How about that? I wonder that is. Chris Thomas said he reckons that's €750,000 a month. A month is saved. And this is going to possibly repay the bonds. So that was Chris Thomas. How about that? We now own that pipeline. Isn't that great? Let's get back to the, I think, Howard's with us there. Hi, Howard.
Hi, Andy. It's just something I forgot before when I was on, and the other chap has just reminded me of it. And it's something to remind the people of the island. Okay, the people that's in the money business won't know this, but as far as I'm aware, the Isle of Man does not have the ability or the right to print money. In other words, the government cannot say, we're short of brass today, let's go and print another couple of million. They have to borrow that money. To get our money, the Isle of Man currency, linked to sterling, we have to borrow or buy our money through taxes and monies raised within the island. Unlike the British government, particularly when they had the COVID, what they loosely called quantitative easing. In other words, they were printing more and more money, and they were billions of pounds in debt, and they have something on their GDP, gross domestic product, of about £1 trillion debt, or maybe even more. The Isle of Man couldn't afford to go down that road because they wouldn't be able to buy currency. To be able to use currency, they have to buy sterling. And that way, the Isle of Man would essentially go bankrupt, as they said. And that would be a very, very sad day because of the short-sightedness of our particular government. And, well, they've just borrowed 400 million, which if we'd have been able to produce our own money, they could have printed that, but we are not allowed to do that. So any money that we have on the island, we own it. And this is why we have what we call the reserve. We're not bankrupt, but to go down the road of the present thinking on the green agenda, it's going to seriously deplete any monies that we have in for the future.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Howard.
Take care. Bye now.
It's 12:30 on Manx Radio. Bonzo's here now. Hi, Bonzo.
Hello, yes, listening, to the litany of Julian and Julian and some aspects of what Howard was saying again. It's just any excuse that they can find to try and stymie any climate action at all. I really don't. They spend a lot of their time finding things which have been put through a variety of culture wars, mirrors, and then distorting facts for their own purposes.
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody's entirely against the green agenda. I think the cost of it is what bothers a lot of people.
Well, here's another thing. It's the green agenda, like it's the wokest agenda, like it's all these people who are trying to promote transsexualism in schools, which is utter rubbish, absolute nonsense. It isn't. It's about addressing a real problem with real action. And the reasons for a variety of things that Julian and bring up, such as the lowering of the valuation on Allsted, that is, yes, because the UK government didn't price that correctly to take into account the fact that they've had quite substantial input costs in manufacture of the turbines and cables. So it didn't make it worth their while. So yes, there are costs to things, but still renewable and onshore offshore wind is sort of by far the cheapest form of renewable. But going back to what Howard was just saying about the fact that, yes, we can't print money, we're not a state. We have to borrow funds and have reserves and etc. Which gets back to some of the things that John Webster and others have been saying, and indeed I've been saying, in that we simply have to examine the tax base and to actually tax those who have the broadest shoulders and tax them realistically. The reason that we don't have money isn't because there isn't money present in the Manx economy. There's plenty of that. Go up to Jackson's and look at a £250,000 Bentley SUV, which you can buy. Yeah, there's plenty of money. It just isn't going into government. And it's not as I said before, we don't have to tax the wealthy until the pits squeak. But we do need to tax people so that we can run the kind of country that they and we would like to live in. A lot of people, you can see now on the estate agents' websites, a lot of rather expensive houses are now up for sale. And I'm hearing stories of people who say, right, the way the Isle of Man's going at the moment, we're getting at. And that is because of a lack of funds to government, which they, to a certain extent, are responsible for, because they haven't advocated for a reasonable level of taxation.
Well, you mentioned, I think, previously the fact that there is gold in our offshore seabed, and that it's something we could be tapping into by getting revenues from renting the seabed out to wind farm operators. And again, it hasn't happened. It doesn't seem to be happening with any sort of speed. So why do you think, do you think the government is dragging its heels, or does it have a big plan up its sleeve that it hasn't told us yet?
No, it's government inertia, which other people over the years who've tried to make other investments in other industries, etc., will give the same sorry story, that they bash their heads against a wall of porridge, virtually, and nothing gets done. When there is supposed to be a sense of urgency, well, of course, as I said before, we've been talking about actually having wind turbines on the Isle of Man for 29 years now. It was 1994 it was first mentioned in Tynwald. So that hardly shows a sense of urgency. During the Quayle administration, of course, Boot and his various cronies were absolutely dead set against doing anything like that. And they made damn well sure it didn't happen.
So, do you forgive then the layperson, the man, the woman in the street who would, when they're told about there being a climate crisis and the fact that we have to move at breakneck speed towards, the green future, and nothing happens, that they will just roll their eyes?
Well, they can roll their eyes. Perhaps they ought to ask people who, were almost drowning in basements last week in New York. Why, if there isn't an emergency. Perhaps when they go to the supermarket and they find, I can't get olive oil anymore. Because the olive oil producers of Italy, Spain, and Greece have virtually been wiped out by climate damage.
And do you think people will put two and two together and say, I'm paying more for my coffee, or I'm paying more for my olive oil, or I'm paying more for, it was last year, it was gas. Do you think they put two and two together? Do you think most people live their daily lives by this?
Well, people will start to see, obviously, the prices go up. They will see food shortages in various areas and other commodities. And other issues, such as immigration, for example, which will then expand as it is doing at the moment from North Africa over into the Mediterranean, problems that will bring. And the wars, of course, that's beginning to start to generate in the Sahel and instability in other parts of North Africa. So those are all going to be problems which are generated by the climate crisis. And one thing that I say we need to do is we need to make our contribution and also to proof ourselves against energy price rises from people who wish to exploit the situation, such as OPEC, who are now busy cutting production and cutting production again and cutting production again in order to force up the price of fossil fuels.
So when
to expand revenue.
Let me just ask you then. I mean, it's a very simple question. To what you advocate, what lots of other people advocate, in that green energy solutions, sustainable energy is the way forward. And when someone in the street, again, most people aren't obsessed with this change. It doesn't kind of validate their existence, and certainly won't enrich them. So when they say, "How much is this going to cost me?" what's the answer?
Well, there will be a cost, but the cost will be, of course, rather less than not doing it, because you will then have the problem of storm surge, inundation, all the damage that you will have, particularly, of course, with us, having such a coastline and a coastline which is susceptible to storms and things that we are having to strengthen, and strengthening that is going to be rather expensive, and also flooding that we're having to mitigate against, of course, because of our geography. So doing something about it, it costs, but then again, so does car insurance.
All right. Okay. Appreciate that, Bonzo. Thanks for being with us.
Okay, then. Cheers. Bye.
21 minutes before 1, and a note in from Big John in Laxey says, people are entitled to their views other than climate change. They must take on board that climate change is happening, and we have to think of our children's future. And wind farms, solar and green energy will help the planet for our children, says that correspondent. Lots of messages in today. I wanted to ask Julie Edge where her department's getting the money from to fund the further 6.5% pay increase for teachers. It must add up to several £1 million. Just a few more questions I didn't get to yesterday with Julie Edge. Regarding, I think Jane said, I think we should introduce grammar schools so children who want to achieve aren't held back in so-called inclusive schools and systems, and parents who care about educational standards and have aspirations for their children can save the money that they spend on private tutors to supplement the low quality of secondary education teaching, which is commonplace across the island. That's Jane's view where that's concerned. And a kind of disturbing one I've got in from Beth, who just said there's a growing number of young people who are turning to drug dealing, since some selling drugs like cannabis, cocaine and ecstasy. Now, a lot of people, says Beth, have given the police names and addresses of those involved in criminal activity, whether it's been provided anonymously via Crime Stoppers or directly to the police. But Beth said, as far as I can see, the problem is escalating. Children are being used to move drugs around various areas on the Isle of Man. That was mentioned a while ago by a magistrate. And children are being approached on social media, on Snapchat and Instagram. I've got one particular example, says Beth, and she sent it to me. Now, the police are aware of these individuals running various accounts, but at the moment we haven't done much. All Beth says is basically just look after, if you're responsible for young children and young people, please be very, very careful and just be aware that there is a drugs war going on. Of course, we have far less of it on the Isle of Man, but certainly in the northwest, and certainly with some Liverpudlian drugs gangs seeking to get a foot in the Isle of Man. It is a war. I think the public need to know, says Jackie, that after I read online about a year wait to see cardiology for a cancelled follow-up appointment, I rang the patient line and was told to wait for a new appointment. Apparently 4.5 to 5 years, and this is due to a lack of doctors and repeated cancelled clinics. What's happening with the service that could save hundreds of lives? I could have a major heart attack before I get seen. They proceeded to tell me if I wanted a private appointment to ring the secretary and I could get seen in a week. But I pay national insurance. So what is the national insurance for? Do you not think that if you tax the rich that live here, they'll simply move to a better tax haven? We don't call them tax havens, Desmond. We call them low-tax jurisdictions. We would lose that revenue. Simple mathematics. Do you think that would happen if the rate of tax went up on the Isle of Man? I also got a message in from Ben. Hi, Ben, who just said, bearing in mind that it's probable that the Labour Party will get into power across next year, surely there'll be a lot of people coming to the Isle of Man to pay less tax anyway. We'll see, shall we? And in from New York City flooded in 2015. There was no climate crisis then. New York City floods regularly because of its drainage system and yearly hurricanes, says Texter 970. All the best to you, for you. Instead of those who don't like the idea of assisted dying being allowed to deny anyone else the choice, why doesn't the legislation allow for those against it to opt out of ever being allowed to have it, like we do with organ donation, says Sue. This would mean that they could never be made to change their mind by unscrupulous relatives or dragged into it against their will. It'll be no different for them than it is now. This will leave the rest of us free to choose our own fate, even if we decide against having assisted dying. It seems a much more sensible idea than an all-or-nothing approach where some of the population get bulldozed, everyone else into not having a choice. I say it's undemocratic, says Sue. Well, Dr. Allinson's assisted dying bill is set to be put before Tynwald later on this year. Of course, they'll get back together again later on. Set taxes for consultants and nurses. We need a flat 10% on taxable income to attract them here, says Texter 313. Then charge £10 for a GP appointment. It's the way to do it. I think the reason for sky-high insurance on electric vehicles, says Mick on 303, is that they're frequently written off when damage occurs to the battery packs. Well, the insurance companies seemingly run everything nowadays. If you can't get insurance, nothing happens. More and more people, says 068, in Britain and Europe are realising that net zero is nothing more than a money-making scheme, and the world would not end if it didn't carry on. Well, money is in this, and Bonzo was saying that Orsted, well, in fact, nobody bid for those contracts in the UK a couple of weeks ago because the price wasn't right. Money is at the bottom, of course, money is at the bottom of all this. And you have to, if you like, sift out the altruistic motive of saving the planet, saving the world, saving the ecology. You have to sift all that out. There will be money in this. That's where it works. That's how our capitalist system works. We don't live in a socialist society. There's never really been a successful, true socialist society anywhere. So we live in a mixed economy. We're a market and capitalist based, and we have some elements of social welfare built into that. So money will be everything. This green agenda, it will be funded by big business. Inevitably, big business will find the best ways of making a return on their money. That may come through lobbying, may come through influencing, may come through politics. But it will happen. It is a revolution. It's another industrial revolution. And Graham Fox-Hume, the geophysicist, just messaged in to say, I've said many times, the best way forward for energy independence for the Isle of Man is geothermal energy. It's clean and green, doesn't produce carbon dioxide, it's unobtrusive, it's scalable, it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, with a lifetime in the 50s, if not hundreds of years. Wind and solar power, says Graham, just don't work. Hence the false information that is being put out. Thank you, Norma. She just said, we keep on hearing about our income and the money and what have you. The Treasury Minister had something to say about using our reserves. I didn't quite catch it. What did he say? Well, Dr. Allenson was defending criticism of how much money government is taking from reserves. The Treasury Minister says our income should reach more than £1 billion next year, but we need to dip into the reserves.
We've got an economic strategy which was endorsed by Tynwald, which looks at two things. One looks at how we're going to afford the public services we have on the Isle of Man and putting more money, particularly into health and education, to grow the active working population. But secondly, to actually widen the tax base, because we know that people on the Isle of Man have got relatively low wages. That's why the commitment to increase the minimum wage and par it to the living wage by 2025 is really important. We also need to make sure that the prosperity that the Isle of Man has is spread evenly across our population. And so drawing down on those reserves in the right way as part of a 5-year financial plan to then come back on balance is the right thing to do, given the market volatility we've got at the moment and given what both our nation and the world has been through over the last 3 years. Government doesn't stop over the summer. We've been working very hard on these long-term predictions. What we know is that inflation is now coming down, but we also know that there is an in-baked pressure there, particularly in terms of wages and the necessity to fund frontline services again. So what we're looking for in the budget next year is that long-term stability. Next year's budget, we forecast that income will be up to £1.058 billion, and we're on track for that with increased tax receipts. But we also predicted that we'd need to draw down around about £84 million from reserves next year and gradually reduce that over the 5-year financial plan. And certainly those predictions are online at the moment, but there will be further work to be done with various departments to make sure that they can try to stick to the allocated budgets, but also make sure that we have the leeway there to deal with some of the pay increases that are being requested at the moment in a balanced way.
That's the Treasury Minister talking about our money, how much we make, how much we're drawing down, and the future. In the next, in the continuing series of Meet Your Politician, the only politician with a surgery this weekend is actually on Friday, the 6th of October, this Friday, 5:30 till 7. You can meet Russian MHK Michelle Haywood. She's in the East Room of Port St Mary Town Hall, 5:30 till 7 this Friday, the 6th of October.
Business owners, if you're looking to get involved in a great local cause, then find out about the Queen's Pier Restoration Trust. Opportunities include helping out and discovery days for staff, along with sponsorship opportunities to help with the restoration. Call Graham on 355 104 to discuss the corporate support options available to keep this historic Manx landmark for future generations. Call Graham today on 355 104. This audio has been kindly sponsored by Paul Carey & Sons.
Everyone's more conscious of energy usage nowadays, so Manx Utilities has begun installing smart meters for standard domestic customers island-wide. With our Smart Living app available too, you'll be in control of tracking and managing your energy. No need to contact us, we'll be in touch when we're ready to fit your smart meter. Visit the Smarter Living page at manxutilities.in. Manx Utilities, delivering a smarter future.
Just Care products for mobility. Just Care products, we have a range of rise, recline and fireside chairs to try. These are British made and perfect for people with mobility issues. With finance available through our partner Conister, come take a seat at Just Care products. Find us behind B&Q, or for more information give us a call on
627 177.
Drive smarter, drive more reliable, drive a great deal at Mannin Motors. With a superb range of cars for every budget, always available. And if we don't have it, we'll source it. Plus, servicing, valeting and prestige detailing too. Mannin Motors, Richmond Hill, Douglas. Find us on Facebook or call 420 420. That's 420 420. Drive a better bargain at Mannin Motors.
Get ready for another winning weekend on Manx Radio.
And this week you can win £100 to spend on fuel or home heating oil from Ellen Bannon Fuels for all your fuel needs, powering industry, farms and businesses, fueling your cars and heating your homes.
Visit manxradio.com and answer the competition question for your chance to win. You can enter as many times as you like.
Then make sure you're listening to Manx Radio Breakfast on Monday morning when we'll announce the winner.
Make this your winning weekend with your nation station, Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
8 minutes before 1. Just a quick word, says James. I may have got this wrong, but did Julie Edge say on Mannin Line yesterday that action short of strike action is now off? If so, well done to her, because this has dragged on pre-COVID and now with various chief execs and ministers, so well done to her. Here's a note in that just said, would it not be better for the public to have private health care? It costs £100 a month, £25 a week, and you get an actual service. I get messed around for 11 years with a shoulder injury. For 11 years, the doctor was more than happy to keep me dosed up with tramadol and codeine. I think the taxpayers are paying more than £25 a week to Manx Care. And I don't think, says Carl, they do care. In my mind, they only care because they care about their salaries. I'm sure they do care, Carl, and not the health and well-being of the people who fund their NHS and Manx Care. Carl's answer: get private health care. That's the word. And more on taxing the rich. Should we tax the rich on the Isle of Man? And yes, it's Retta, thank you, who just said, if you tax the rich, they will just clear off to Monaco. You think so? Julian. Hi, Julian the cat.
Ah, yes. I do wonder why. Just something to bear in mind. When you hear the words wind and solar are cheaper than fossil fuels, there's a word that's often missing in that sentence, and that word is hours. You've probably seen prices mentioned for wind of $45 per megawatt, or indeed Erie Stane being mentioned at 21 megawatts and could power. However, that's a snapshot in time for when the turbines are actually working perfectly. But then you've got to factor in no wind, or too much wind, or it's cloudy, or it's nighttime. And that's where the hours word becomes much more important. You know, if wind is only going to turn up for a fifth of the year, and solar is a fixed solar system is about 8% of the year, you've got wind farms that up until recently have been paid for not producing, which is disappearing rapidly now because the governments are not doing that anymore, which is why you've got this no bid situation. And then you've got to ramp up coal and power stations for when you haven't got production from these renewables. So when you say it's cheaper, that's a snapshot figure. When you actually put the word hours of work done into it, that's where you see the difference. And guess what's 1/3 of wind over 20 years?
What's that?
Geothermal.
So I'll come back to this. I asked Bonzo, Julian, so can you do this? Most people don't live their lives by this. as I say, it doesn't validate their existence. They don't wake up in the morning, that's the first thing they think about. They don't have a professional career in this, doesn't give their lives meaning. They just want to get on with their lives. If they've got children, bring up children. If they have elderly relatives, look after those. So how can you help people make sense of this policy in their daily lives? How can you make it relevant to how people live their lives?
I'll make it very relevant. If the grid collapses, you won't be able to have water anymore because there'll be no power to pump to your tap. You won't be able to charge your electric vehicle. You won't be able to watch television. You won't be able to charge your laptop. You won't have the internet. We'll be back before the Industrial Revolution very quickly. That will bring everybody into sharp concentration, I think.
All right. Thanks for that, Julian. Good to hear from you.
Thanks.
All the best to you. Julie Edge was on yesterday. Next week, lucky Friday 13th, your Minister for Justice and Home Affairs is on. Jane Paul Wilson, MHK, will be on a week on Friday, along with her Chief Exec, Dan Davies, responsible for fire and rescue, constabulary, cyber security, fireworks at this time of year, prison, probation, emergency planning, civil defence, anti-money laundering, disclosure and barring, licensing, parole, police complaints and road safety strategy, and much more. So if you've got any thoughts, just marshal them for a week on Friday with Jane Paul Wilson. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones today.
WINT